So good morning. Good morning. Very good. It's like maybe better than a school assembly. So my name is indeed Rob. What I love doing is helping people raise even more money, ideally in such a way that you still get home on time. It should be possible to both massively achieve in our jobs and have a happy work-life balance. And yeah, actually my favourite course is a 6-month one. So 6 months or 2 days. Occasionally I agree to do a 1 day. 45 minutes is a challenge for me, but it's a good job. You're looking highly motivated to grab as much as you can, because actually I've found that in a short conference session you can get a lot done. I'm very excited to be here. One reason I'm excited, it's a new thing to speak at a conference which has relevance to my school days, because once upon a time I had a happy 5 years at a school in Devon called Blundell's, and I was just thinking last week that one thing that was happy about that was it was part funded by a bursary, which made life a lot easier for my parents, and presumably that was as a result of some hard-working person like yourselves, so finally I get to pay back a little. So I'm going to do my utmost to provide massive value for you in the next 45 minutes. Those of you who love to tweet, we've got a little Twitter competition going. That's my hashtag, _Rob. The person who sends the most tweets today will win the Keys to Successful Fundraising DVD, and then the second prize is the £15 million interview on the CD, and David and Goliath, How to Defy the Fundraising Odds, as third prize. So then what are we going to do? What the key things I'm aiming for is a natty little technique that can help you feel more confident. I'm going to make really clear what the ultimate weapon is that the most persuasive fundraisers I've interviewed over 15 years use. I'll give you my view, a condensed view of the structure of a conversation in which you are, maybe an introductory conversation or indeed an ask conversation. I hope that most people will have found, people who've got the little handout plastic thing, yeah, so I'm going to, in the time allowed at the end, bring to life a few points within the magic formula which helps you find persuasive ideas about whatever it is you want people to fund. And right at the end, a very quick opportunity for those of you who like the sorts of stuff we're covering and want to take it further. I'll talk to you a little bit about how you might do that if you want to. The good news is I didn't make these ideas up on the way. I've done them literally with thousands of people whose job it is to raise money. It's rare that people fall asleep in my sessions. I know there's not a big claim to fame, and I've set the bar pretty low, but you're likely to find it moderately interesting at the very least. But smart people like you didn't drive all the way here just for interesting. What you want is useful. And if what you want is something you could use tomorrow or next month or share with your head teacher next month in a simple, clear way, then I suggest there are 3 arduous things we could endeavour to do as a group. Number 1, the more playful you are, the easier it is to learn, as you well know, being based in a school. That helps you be open to a new way of thinking. I'm not going to do a show of hands, but my guess is that within this room there are decades and decades of great experience, and if you've been doing this for years, I wouldn't blame you for kind of sitting back thinking, well, I don't do it that way, my way works better. At the end, by all means, choose whether you prefer your way or my way, but within the 45 minutes, at least test out whatever it is I'm offering. And then make your decision. That's much easier if you're in a playful mood and you're feeling a bit curious. In fact, we could do a very quick, let's do a little quick thing to bring that to life. Would you just stand up with the level of gusto of people who are determined to raise even more money? So we're standing, don't do yourself an injury, but all you need to do is put your finger in the air like that, and all you need to do is finger in the air and you're looking at the ceiling, and try to imagine a clock face on the ceiling so that you can see the 12 and the 3 and the 6 and the 9. All you need to do is rotate your hand in a clockwise direction. So from the wrist it's going clockwise, whatever you do, make it go clockwise, clockwise, clockwise is the way to go. From the wrist. While it's going around clockwise, bring your elbow down, so you're now looking down on your hand, which is at chest height. And now answer the question, is it now going clockwise or anti-clockwise? Okay, so before you sit down, I just have to explain the 6 people for whom nothing happened, it was clockwise and now it's still clockwise. You're double jointed or something, so good for you. But for the other 96 of us, what happened is it started going one direction, and the next time you looked at it, it wasn't 5% different, your result wasn't 10% different, your result was utterly different, would someone put us out of our misery and tell me, what did you do to get such a different result? You changed your perspective. Thank you so much, please sit down. And some of you are thinking, well, that's a very big gimmick for a very small learning point. I say no. No gimmick is big enough to help get into our unconscious that often the problem was the way we saw things rather than what we did. What things mean to you, what the perspective is, can make all the difference. So as well as some more surface level tactics and techniques, what I'm endeavouring to do is help subtly change the way you might view some of these challenges. Sooner or later in a session like this, you will get some ideas that will raise you more money. I invite you to make sure you capture and write those down. If you don't make decisions today, in the busyness of tomorrow, you'll never get round to applying. Does that make sense? Thank you for your nods. Okay, so step 1 of my 7 ideas that might help make it easier to ask for money is to do with confidence. And there's some smart, able people in the room. And my guess is most of your job is pretty enjoyable and not too hard, not too taxing, and you go about your business confidently. But there are few times in a fundraiser's life where it gets that bit harder and even the best of us can wobble. And those times are when you have to call the rich person back for the 4th time and the PA was blunt rude to you the previous 3 times. Or on the day when you have to go and make the big ask for that, £500,000. On those days, many of us potentially wobble, but on those are specifically the days on which we need to feel more bulletproof. How do you do that? Well, this technique goes some way to helping us feel more bulletproof confidence. And I start with a question about what a belief. Would someone just raise your hand? What do you think a belief is? What are some ingredients? If we did a back of cigarette packet definition of beliefs, what could we include in the definition? Certainty, yes, and passion. And what is a belief? What compared to a statement? Yeah.
A value.
It's a value. Yes, it is. Conviction. Yes, all of these things. All of these I think are consistent with what I think is true. Here's a definition I borrowed from someone who studied this in great depth and makes great use of it. And he's got a bloody axe in his jacket, then it's intelligent fight or flight adrenaline. I wouldn't train that out of you. But I never yet met I mean, maybe one day there'll be such an event, and then thank goodness, finally my mother's beliefs will help me. But here's the point, that associating fear with talking to strangers is just a belief. Does that make sense? Maybe you've been to a country, maybe someone, first time I went to Republic of Ireland, and people just started talking to me who didn't know me. I thought, what do you want? They didn't want anything. They just those people I happened to meet in that culture happened to not have this feeling. So, point one, often the biggest thing that makes a difference in your ability to do your job, raise more money, make the world a better place, is not skill. It's deeper than that. It's what you believe about the world, about the way the world works, about how people are. So how could we use this? Well, basically, the way I got better at fundraising is I got fed up that I couldn't do it, and I went and interviewed anyone who was brilliant at it, who had fabulous results, and I would buy them coffee and say, how do you do that? And which book did you read? And break it down for me. And over a decade, I amassed all these interviews. And do you know what the fundamental belief is of people who raise a lot of money but still go home on time? Here's the belief. Donors gain massively from giving to causes they care about. Now, I'm happy to see you're not amazed and horrified. People in the room, this room, there's probably some massive high achievers in this room too, but at some level, all of you see the wisdom of that. And yet, I suggest that in the moments where fundraising is hardest for you, when you get too tight and wound up and worried about daring to ask for more, in that moment you did not focus on this truth. You forgot that giving is good for people, and because you were worrying about, it's an extra, quite a lot of money, or nobly you were worrying about the extra child you would serve. But that's the wrong thing to focus on Ask Day. When you meet the donor, you have to be not focusing on the children, not on your hopes and fears and your attitude to money. You have to focus on the truth that giving is good for the other person. So why wouldn't you happily make this lovely offer to them? They may say yes, they may say no. So, how do we, this is fine, intellectually it can help a little bit, but on a longer course I do a full exercise with this where we actually practice it and get you focusing on all sorts of evidence that demonstrates that this is true. I haven't got time to do the full exercise, but I'm going to show you the exercise just in case you want to do it on your own later, or take your bursar or your head teacher through the exercise. What the idea is if you want to get better at anything, be it tennis or cooking or major gift fundraising, then rather than just worry about skill, ask yourself, what is the belief held by people who are brilliant at this thing, and how could I strengthen that belief in myself? So what this guy Anthony Robbins suggests is that a statement is like a tabletop laying flat on the floor. How do you prop up a table, put table legs underneath it so that it stood up? How do you prop up or turn a statement into a belief or even a conviction? What you have to do is find concepts or stories or ideas or facts which are consistent with the belief you want to believe more strongly. It looks like this. If there's ever something I want to get better at, I draw my tabletop. Here I write the belief that world-class champions have about this. Here I'm saying donors can gain massively from giving. And then I simply ask myself, what are the various things within me that I know to be true which absolutely prop this up and help me know that this is true? So Exhibit A is, who here has seen the Secret Millionaire program? You ever seen Secret Millionaire? Okay, so if you're ever slightly a bit worried about whether you should ask the person for more money, watch a 2-minute clip of the Secret Millionaire in which the rich person is much happier at the end after giving away 50 grand than at the beginning. It'll just remind you, I'm not taking from the wealthy donor, I'm going to them with stuff that could make them happier. Another one that works for me is one of the strongest ones, is to think of a time when I have done a good deed, like this volunteering I did in North London in a primary school for 8-year-olds with low self-esteem. I did it. Are we taking off here? Maybe it's the plumbing, but just let's keep going anyway. Right. So I did the volunteering because fortunate people should give back. It's the right thing to do. But here's what I was not expecting, just how strongly this hit me. From the first session I did, it made me really happy to be giving. There's a fundamental human need to contribute and not to gain for yourself. You all have references. You all know this to be true. A time when you helped your next door neighbour and no one would have known if you hadn't. It meets a human need. Now, the sad thing is some human beings rarely ever access it or know that it exists, but it is a human need. And when we're in that zone, that's why the secret millionaire is always completely changed after giving away the money. So what is your reference? It could be volunteering formally, or it could just be any good turn you've done where you help the tourist, and then for 2 minutes you felt a bit of a glow. Now, have I got the notes for this? No. I recently spoke to a very successful head of development for a school, and she gave me a great little story, and there's various good learning points in it. But what they have is a social enterprise club or project in that prep school. And what they did is the children for the social enterprise were packaging up and branding tea and coffee, and they're enjoying the project. So as a good idea, what the head of development suggested, could they create some of those products as gifts for the benefactors' dinner? So they did that, and they also, here's the smart thing, what she also did is she asked the children to make a video all about how much they've enjoyed the social enterprise, and then also in the end of the video say, we're really interested in, first of all, thank you for giving money to our school, but we're really interested in why you do that. And fabulous technique, because then quite a lot of the benefactors sent information back to the children explaining why they give. In terms of Cialdini's commitment, the law of commitment and consistency, after someone's told you all of the good reasons why they give, do you think they're more or less likely to give again? So there's one quote I particularly like that this head of development sent me. It's from this particular donor who said along the lines of, there comes a point where you don't need an extra house, you can only have so many meals at a time. To be honest, if you did buy an extra house or a boat, it actually would become more of a burden than a joy. And at that point, I'd much rather give to something I care about. So my exhibit C here, that helps me be certain that giving is good for that person, is I'm taking away a burden that potentially his money would be. I don't know, if you want to get more philosophical, then people like the Dalai Lama advise us, if you want to be happier, go and be kind. If you want to get more scientific, then, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the link between hormones and emotion is more and more clear for scientists. And what they've found is when there is oxytocin in your blood, you're happier. When there is cortisol, that's a stress hormone in your blood, you're less happy and you're more stressed. What they do is they hook people up and ask people to go and do a kind thing, and surprise, surprise, oxytocin goes up when you are philanthropic, and cortisol, i.e. stress, goes down. So that's a pretty good thing to have in your head on your way to go and meet a donor. Last one is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I quite like it. Who here has something to do with gifts in wills and legacies? I guess many of you. Okay, so maybe you have read of the work of Richard Radcliffe, who knows a lot about legacies. So the last time I heard him speak 2 years ago, he told me this. On average, people who leave a gift in their will live 8 years longer than people who don't. Which is a pretty good legacy proposition, I think. Right, so when I interview superstars of fundraising like Victoria at UNICEF about how she got this £15 million gift, and she said, I said, weren't you a bit nervous having to go ask for 15 million when they already gave 4 million last year? Weren't you nervous? Didn't you feel cheeky? She said, no. And she was completely congruent in saying, I was excited, I wasn't nervous. Here's why. Because in her head, on that way to that £15 million gift meeting, she's linked up what she's got to do today is potentially take away a burden, give a burst of happiness. She could even be helping someone live longer, adding years to their life. You'd be bulletproof too. Does that make sense? And some of you are thinking, well, he's thought in a bit too much depth about this, hasn't he? He's got a job to do. Here's the truth. Not all of these need to chime with you, but unless you search for meanings which are positive about picking up the phone and talking to that scary rich person, or have meanings which are positive about the chance to offer a 100 grand opportunity, then most of us, if you're human, what will fill the vacuum is unhelpful, scary thoughts and meanings. Does that make sense? Okay, so what I invite you to do is, the good news is we're already building on strength. So most of you often know this to be true anyway. I just want it to be rock solid. How do you feel something more strongly? You focus on it. So all I'd like you to do is focus on this as true by way of a story. Could you think of any reference you have, in particular, any donor you've ever spoken to who clearly is gaining from the act of giving to this school or to a charity you've ever worked with? And you said thank you for this gift, and they said, no, thank you, it was our pleasure. It made us happy. So can you think of an example of... I'm not interested in the particular motivation so much as the truth that they were happier giving than if they had not got involved at all. That's what I want. So in pairs, we haven't got 6 minutes of Jackanory time. It's just a quick reference each way, 30 seconds each way. Can you? And if you can't think of one, think of a time you did a good turn and felt a bit. You admit that you felt a bit good about it. In pairs, ever so quickly, so we can start to feel this to be true. Go.
One was an old lady coming into the school at the school would be very kind to
just before I move on to the 4 mistakes that are most likely to make asking for money more difficult for you, just to let you know, if you want to get access to my blogs and my free fundraising guides and so on, put your business card in either my son's homemade papier-mâché beautiful thing there, or my little bag there, and the prize is that we do a prize draw in 20 minutes time, and there'll be the DVD and the How to Be a Millionaire magnet and the CD as the prizes. So these are wending their way around. If you would like to leave me your contact details in the prize draw. But now I'm going to carry on with what I think are the 4 things that make asking for money more difficult. The first mistake is this. If you do not ask a confirm question, the ask for money will be harder. Here's what I mean by that. A confirm question is not an open question. What do you think? And this is assuming you've already had a discussion about the problem that the school faces or the children face, and then what your solution is. You've got to the point in the conversation where potentially it would be appropriate to ask for money. I'm saying the ask is harder if you don't ask a confirm question. Confirm question is something like, so my sense is you think we're right to be investing in a new science block. Have I understood you correctly? Now, if they then say, yeah, I mean, clearly expensive and it's not easy, but yes, I think you are. And then I would say, and is it even the sort of thing that you and your husband would consider a gift towards? And I just asked, and my ask becomes really easy because she just said she likes it. Does that make sense? Some people say, yeah, but too happy in your make-believe world, Rob. What if they say no? Mrs. Donham, my sense is you think we're right to be investing in a new AstroTurf hockey pitch. It's the right thing to do. By the way, have you noticed some of your friends, when they smile and they nod, it means they agree with you? Others, it just means they're listening. Have you noticed that? Anyway, so she could have been happily listening to my amazing stories about just the difference it makes to children's ability to do regular sport if they can go out in all weathers. And then I say, my sense is you think we should be doing this. Am I right? And then she could say, well, not sure. Isn't there too much sport already, all this rushing about? Maybe she loathes sport. She always felt pressured to do too much. Do you see what I'm saying? Now, is this good news or bad news that I found this out? Well, thank goodness I found out. I was brave enough to ask a confirm question before blundering into an ask. Because if I blundered nervously straight into the ask, I could have probably got a no, and that would be the end of that, probably. I would never have found out. So, confirm question, there's a lovely confirm question. One of my clients said to me last week when I was chatting to her, she asked this question. Is the bursary campaign something you think is valuable? Now, if they say, oh, no, I'm not sure, well, then it would probably, they're not going to give anyway. But if they've said, yeah, it absolutely makes sense that there should be a fabulous mix of children in our school, then the opportunity to ask becomes much easier, doesn't it? So that's the confirm. It gets harder if you don't ask a confirm question. It gets harder if you ask in principle at the same time as with the specific. Here's how I was trained to do this 15 years ago when I was at the NSPCC. They advised me to do it this way. Would you consider making it possible for us to help up to 38 children per month in this area of Hackney by providing more therapists and in this way, that, the other way, or not? Even if you manage to get it right because you kind of repeat it to yourself in the bathroom mirror 48 times before going out that day, the chance of you being relaxed and truly tuning in and listening to the other person when you should be and not worried about how you're going to get the words perfectly are slim and none, I found. So, by the way, all of this is so that there are people in this room who've got a really good way of asking for money already. So if what I'm saying is just different to you and yours works, then please do yours. But for those of you who have yet to kind of have a formula that they can default to, that's why I'm offering these 4 ideas. The third way of making it harder is to ask for money, which seems absurd. But here's the point. We're not in the money business. We're in the business of giving people opportunities to do something that they want to do, as long as it's packaged right and we help them realise they do. But it's not about the money. Therefore, the money comes last. What we offer them is the product, the solution, the making it better. So I'll show this to you. In fact, I'll show you the whole conversation now. My advice is probably don't write all this down, but if you've got a smartphone, it might be worth kind of coming and taking a photo of this at the end if you want to. But I just want this as kind of a little aid memoir. I'm assuming that up here we were talking about some problem and then the fact that we have a way of solving it, and we get to the point where potentially they're saying, how do we help? Either verbally or intrinsically, there's a notion they want to help. I say confirm question. Do you think this is a valuable thing to do? Broadly, that's my confirm question. Donor says, yes, it seems to be excellent. I say, and is it even the sort of thing that you and your wife would consider making a gift towards? I just asked in principle. Donor says, well, I'm not sure. Just how much are we talking? Well, in order to, let's say, help 30 children benefit from this world-class education, we would need to provide the boarding and the tuition fees and the facilities. And that would cost this amount. Is that something you'd like to do? That's one way of asking. But if you ever tried to broach the idea of asking and get all of that mouthful in at the same time, you're never going to do it. But if I've said, would you like to give then? Would you like to contribute? And she says, well, how much? Then it's much easier for me to calmly, I've already started the negotiation, so here I can calmly think this through and refer back to the little boy we talked about earlier. In order to help more little boys like Charlie, who we were just talking about, we'd need to do this and it would cost this much. What do you think? That's how I do it. There are other ways, but it's well worth, if you haven't got a way, study a default tactic that works. And the last thing that makes it harder, do you know what the wealthy taxi driver's secret is. I don't know if you've ever been a taxi driver. Here's what it is, and fewer than 1 in 10 taxi drivers do this, because I travel a lot. Ask for the return journey as you drop off the fare. Drop the person off, say, are you coming back from this conference centre later? That's what successful taxi drivers do. Because 1 in 3 times they're going to get an extra fare. Does that make sense? It's so obvious, given the number of times drivers moan to me about how hard it is to find fares nowadays. So, what do? It's really easy to get to the end of a meeting and not proactively and assertively and persuasively help the other person agree to when our next conversation is going to be. Yeah, no, it needn't be next Friday, because that might be too much pressure. But assuming he or she said, yes, in principle, yes, and I'll go away and talk to my accountant, then I've got to say, fantastic, and it's great that in principle you'd love to. Apart from anything else, we'd love to thank you properly. And that sometimes, I'm sorry to say, takes a bit of school politics and me trying to get the head teacher's time and so on. So in order for me to just keep a sense of that, should I call you or your PA, in 2 weeks' time on the Friday? Suggest something specific, and then they may say, oh, that's too soon. And they say, oh, that's all right. But whatever happens, you need to leave with a date. Otherwise, when they never quite call you back, you'll forever be worrying whether you are or are not allowed to call them. Does that make sense? It's so obvious and yet often overlooked. Okay, so those are 4 things that make asking easier. I haven't got time for the biggest enemy, but I do want to just touch on, in the time remaining, what I would call the magic formula. So I want to do this bit up here, which ignites a desire in them to make something happen today that is consistent with their values and their hopes and wants and fears. This is before the ask. That actually is the most important bit. The ask is just technique, but the real art is how skillful are you at building rapport, listening to them and getting them talking to you, and then, critically, saying things to them back which help them feel certain that if they give money to it, something they care about will get better. So over 10 years, I've been testing all sorts of ways of doing it, and what I've come across through trial and error is what I call the magic formula. Just before I come to what do people usually do? Here are the two things people usually do in terms of talking about their school or their charity. Step 1, they talk about the building, the theatre, the science block that we're going to make. And then maybe if you're lucky, they'll get round to saying why. So they say the what first and then some why. Well, because the old Bunsen burners aren't working and it's getting a bit dangerous. Don't know where that came from. Okay, so wrong way round. This is it's like that. But it's all too easy to do, because lots of people say, well, what's the project? What are you going to do? Easy to answer, we're going to build a science block. No, that's not the answer. The answer is, first of all, evoke the problem. It's not obvious. You have to work hard to deliberately say, well, happily I'll talk about the science block, but first of all, let's really get to grips with what the problem is. The problem is, it's leaking all over the electrics in the Bunsen burner, and potentially that's dangerous. Evoke the problem before you talk about what it is that would solve it. And again, one of my clients said, since coming on the Major Gift Mastery program I do, she went back and she changed all of the documents that they'd been sending out, which were mostly about the building or mostly about the bursary. And she realized now at the top, it's quotes and stories and information which helps us tune into why this is such a problem. Only after you've evoked the problem do I suggest you go into any detail about, what many people would then do is, okay, now can I talk about the science block, Rob? No, you can't. Well, I would advise against it. Obviously you might mention it, but the more important thing is not what are you going to do, but the question, does it work? Do bursaries equalise the odds? Do they improve the social mix? Do they help talented, able children get access to this? And does it work? Is more important than what do you do? We're going to build a science block. Does that make sense? So in terms of how you do that, these are the magic formula questions. We haven't got time to go into them all in depth, but there's a couple of little examples I love, again, from someone who was raising money for a music school. And I'm just going to walk you through some of the answers that she and I came up with. Fundamentally, what's the essence of the problem? Well, the problem is right now they have to go and do music away from the main school, and it's at best a 6-minute walk away from where most of the classrooms and the houses are, because it's over back and beyond. The problem is it's too far away, and the consequence of that is we waste loads of music time. And what's some not obvious things about that? Kids aren't as good at music as they could be. They've got great teachers, but if you're wasting 25% of the time each music lesson, that's going to have an impact. In fact, one of the impacts is some able musicians are ending up giving up because they just can't be bothered doing all this extra walking, carting heavy instruments. So fewer children are enjoying it, fewer children are doing well. Even, and here's a real shocker, this school has an impressive reputation, so it's able to potentially attract great music teachers, but those really great music teachers, some of them end up leaving because they don't want to spend 25% of their time setting up and taking stuff down. So at the moment we're losing great staff. Short, sad example, so I claim no credit for this, but I love what this fundraiser did. What she said was, now there's various ways of presenting information. 5 minutes round trip, that's 10 minutes. If you tell me we lose 10 minutes per 45-minute lesson, that sounds quite bad. But when you think that's 10 minutes per child, 20 children in an ensemble, 12 times a term, look at this big scary graph of the number of music hours wasted. 40 hours wasted per term. This is the orchestra, they're wasting 52 music hours. You see how it's the same information, but we've brought it to life a whole lot more, kind of making it. Now, music is not my thing, sport is my thing, but if I loved music and I see this, I'm going to say, we've got to solve this. And this other one I particularly love is step 3 in here is, can you think of a short, sad example or a story of what can go wrong with the current status quo? She sent me this fabulous photo of 2 tiny boys carting this huge double bass. Now, actually, hers was on a sunny day. I'd have done it in the snow or the wind or something. But anyway, can you see how once we have this magic formula, it gives us all sorts of ideas for how can I help someone not just intellectually tune in to what the problem is, but to feel it consistent with their values. Does that make sense? Next question is, what story shows your solution works? Well, they haven't built the music school yet, so maybe you would have to go to another school that had a similar problem and solved it, and now has lots of happy stories of children who would have given up now staying in music and enjoying themselves because they don't have to go out in the wind. Maybe that would be a type of story you might find, although there are others. Numerically, how could you show it works? Well, one thing that she did is when she arrived, there was just no way of answering that. We just don't have stats. We need a new music block. What she did was she sent out questionnaires to music teachers, to parents and to children about what do you love about music at the school and what could be better, frankly, in your opinion. All of the feedbacks come back. We love the teaching, we love the encouraging environment, so all of the great things about you would hope for, but all of the answers are coming back, yeah, but it's a rubbish facilities, frankly, for a school like this. So what we want is contrast between here and here. So in here, can you show it works? She's going to do questionnaires again once the school is built, and I think these graphs are going to go radically down, don't you? There's a strong chance of that. So we're proving that it works. Right. How are we doing?
You've got about 2 minutes.
Okay, very good. Right, so what I advise you to do is have a look at the handout I've given you, the magic formula. If you want lots more depth, then if you go to my website, then you can download a free document with lots more examples to help you get your head around it. Maybe lots of this is obvious to you, but it may be that a key challenge you have is helping your colleagues who are not professional fundraisers because they're busy being teachers, helping them do some of these things. Maybe some of those resources might help you kind of get the message through to your colleagues so they can support you well. What I'd like to do is a last couple of things. One of them, 45 minutes isn't enough to do justice to a skill that might make your school £1 million next week. So that's why I generally take my time over it. For those of you who would like to explore other ways of learning this stuff and actually practicing rather than just listening, then I do a 6-month program, Major Gift Mastery program, and there's training in there split across the 6 months. There's coaching, there's this sort of stuff to help you kind of really go back and share it with your colleagues. There's lots of value in there. So the value is more than £5,000 worth of stuff. But, and the other thing, all of the people who've ever done this raise more money, but we particularly celebrated a couple of months ago when it finished because one person got a gift of £5 million during the programme. So we're pretty proud of it. That's how much it costs, but for the next month or so, there's going to be, rather than 1,497 for the main programme, it's going to be just under £1,000, 997 plus VAT. If you'd like to chat to me about that, I'm around till lunchtime and then I've got to go. Or send me an email. We're going to do a prize draw. Did the business cards get anyway? In fact, just before we do the prize draw, let's just have ever such a quick run through of some things we covered. Step 1 was a way of feeling more confident on the scary but lucrative days. Idea 2 was the confirm question. Idea 3 was separate asking in principle from asking in detail. Technique 4 was never ask for money, offer value. Idea 5 was always persuasively agree to the next step before you leave. 6, evoke the problem before talking about the solution, talking about your science block. Impact is more persuasive than what you do. Does it work is the thing to talk about rather than how the science block will look or be built. And though we didn't talk about Cialdini, so it was just 7. I'm sorry, it wasn't 7 plus, it was 7 techniques. Would you just take 30 seconds, turn the person sitting next to you and tell them one idea out of all of that you honestly think if you practiced it you could apply later this week, this month? Take one thing and it'll become more real to you if you tell the person sitting next to you. What are you going to do? One thing, go. So our last few ideas from me are, if you want to chat at the end, by all means come and chat. I think a key thing is find just a couple of things from this session and see if you can focus on those and add them to your practice or how you explain things to your colleagues at the school. We're going to finish very soon, but the last couple of things to do are, firstly, if you want to tweet more today, the Twitter competition is still open, so you can win. If you miss out on this draw, you can win prizes that way from lots of tweets. And then the second thing is the third prize, which has just been drawn by my colleague here. Third prize, the person who gets How to Be a Millionaire Magnet Tips booklet is Moira Rowney. Yay! Well done, Moira. Going back to Moira, could we send that one back? And then the second prize, the person who wins the CD, all about the £15 million gift story, is King's School, SRT King's School.
Yeah.
Okay, wow, how's it going there? Right, very good. Congratulations. And the first prize, the Key to Successful Fundraising DVD, is Elaine from Kingston Grammar School. Okay, great. I'm around for a little while, certainly throughout coffee time. Thank you so much for all the work you do. It does make the world a better place. Thank you and goodbye.